A leading figure behind one of the most globally influential music companies is now at the center of a criminal investigation that could affect not only corporate governance in South Korea, but also the international entertainment industry. Bang Si-hyuk, founder of Hybe, faces a potential detention warrant linked to alleged irregularities during the company's initial public offering. The figure at the center of the case is approximately 190 billion won, or about 129 million US dollars in alleged gains. What this video examines is how a high-profile IPO evolved into a legal dispute, what is at stake for the company and its global operations, and how this case could reshape regulatory expectations in South Korea's capital markets. At a structural level, the case tests the enforcement of financial regulations in one of Asia's most active equity markets. If authorities proceed with detention and formal charges, it signals a strict approach to capital market violations, regardless of corporate scale. If the case does not result in prosecution, it may raise questions about regulatory thresholds and enforcement consistency. Either outcome influences investor confidence, particularly in sectors where brand value and intellectual property intersect with public market financing. To understand the situation, the background begins with Hybe's rise. Founded by Bang Si-hyuk, the company transformed from a domestic music label into a global entertainment firm, driven largely by the success of BTS. The group's international reach expanded K-pop's market presence, contributing to significant revenue growth and positioning Hybe as a major player in global entertainment. This growth culminated in the company's initial public offering, which attracted strong investor interest and marked a key milestone in its corporate development. Initial public offerings in South Korea operate under strict disclosure requirements governed by capital market laws. Companies must provide accurate information to investors, particularly during pre-listing phases, when share transactions and valuations are highly sensitive. Allegations in this case focus on whether early investors were misled about the company's listing plans and encouraged to sell shares under conditions that later generated disproportionate gains for specific parties. According to the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency, Bang is suspected of directing early investors to sell shares to a private equity fund linked to his associates. After Hybe went public, that fund reportedly sold its stake at a higher valuation, with Bang receiving around 30% of the profits under a prior agreement. Authorities estimate that this arrangement generated approximately 190 billion won in gains that are now under investigation. Bang has denied wrongdoing and has stated through legal counsel that he has cooperated with authorities throughout the process. Recent developments have accelerated the case. Police have formally requested a detention warrant, which will be reviewed by the Seoul Southern District Prosecutor's Office. If prosecutors proceed, a court hearing would typically occur within 2 to 3 days to determine whether detention is justified. This procedural timeline indicates that the case is entering a critical phase where legal arguments and evidence will be tested in court. The situation has already affected market perception. Following reports of the warrant request, Hybe's share price declined by approximately 2.4%, contrasting with the 2.7% increase in the benchmark Kospi index on the same day. This divergence reflects investor sensitivity to governance risks, particularly in companies where leadership plays a central role in strategic direction. Another dimension involves international considerations. The National Police Agency confirmed that the US Embassy in Seoul requested a temporary suspension of Bang's travel ban, which has been in place since August of the previous year. The request was linked to planned attendance at events related to US Independence Day and discussions connected to BTS's global tour. While no additional comment was provided by the embassy, The request highlights the intersection between legal proceedings and international business operations. The power dynamics in this case involve regulatory authorities, corporate leadership, and global stakeholders. South Korean regulators aim to uphold market integrity and enforce compliance with disclosure laws. Hybe's leadership seeks to maintain operational stability and protect its global business interests. Investors, both domestic and international, are assessing how the outcome may affect governance standards and financial transparency. Consider the first scenario. If the court approves the detention warrant and the case proceeds to formal charges, it could lead to a prolonged legal process. This would likely increase scrutiny of Hybe's governance structure and potentially affect its strategic decisions, particularly those involving international expansion and partnerships. It may also prompt broader regulatory reviews of IPO practices in South Korea, reinforcing compliance requirements for future listings. Now consider a second scenario. If the court rejects the detention request or the investigation does not lead to charges, the immediate legal pressure on Bang would decrease. However, the case may still leave reputational effects, influencing investor perception and corporate governance expectations. In this scenario, regulators may still pursue policy adjustments to address any identified gaps in disclosure or oversight mechanisms. The broader implications extend beyond a single company. South Korea's capital markets are integrated into global financial systems, and high-profile cases can influence how international investors assess risk. The entertainment industry adds another layer, as companies like Hybe operate across multiple jurisdictions and rely on global fan engagement, touring, and partnerships. Any disruption to leadership or governance can have ripple effects across these interconnected activities. What makes this situation notable is the convergence of finance, regulation, and cultural influence. Hybe's growth has been closely tied to the global expansion of K-pop, and its corporate structure reflects both creative and financial dynamics. The current investigation places those dynamics under scrutiny, particularly in how value is generated and distributed during key corporate events such as public listings. The key indicators to watch include the prosecutor's decision on whether to pursue the detention warrant, the court's ruling, and any subsequent legal proceedings. Market reactions and corporate disclosures will also provide insight into how the situation evolves. Each development will contribute to a clearer understanding of the balance between regulatory enforcement and corporate operations in South Korea. In the end, this case is not only about one individual or one company. It reflects how modern capital markets manage complexity in industries where financial structures and global influence intersect. The outcome will shape expectations for transparency, accountability, and governance, not just in South Korea, but in comparable markets where similar dynamics are present.